the e-collar is one of the tools that we use. It's probably one of the more important tools to use that I think it makes a world of difference in the ability to train a dog, because not only can you address this as the dog is ramping up, but you potentially could keep your dog out of a fight. You could keep your dog out of running into a street when they blow you off. It's a safety mechanism for the dog. What I have right here is a prong collar, and this is probably one of the best tools you can ever use. Some people don't like them. They think they're painful to the dog, or you're going to hurt the dog because of that, and that's not the case at all. These things are not sharp. These are rounded. They're very, they're smooth, they're round. But what these do that makes them so helpful, well, first of all, so if I put this on my arm and I start tugging on it, it just doesn't really hurt. But what it does do, different than some other tools, is number one, comparative to a flat collar, this does not put all the weight into the esophagus if they start pulling. In fact, they typically aren't going to pull when you put this on. The other thing is, it creates a pinching. So you get these prongs, and what will happen is it's cinching up. It'll pinch the skin a little bit, and that will tend to get their attention when they're misbehaving, and it'll cause them to not want to pull as well. Now, the proper placement of a prong, Finn, come here, is actually up right behind the ears. These things should be tight. They should not be loose. Come here, Finn. Finn, seats. So I'm putting this up right behind his ears. Okay, so if you can see, I got this right up behind his ears. And this should always be up on the loop that you hook up to with the leash. Should always be up on top. And come, Finn, come on, buddy, come. And then if he starts pulling, it's just going to cinch up. And if I change directions, what it does is it provides us a better feedback to the dog, so he knows where we're wanting to go based on how it's pulling. So yeah, this is one of the, I would say, one of the best tools that we could possibly use. He does also have a flat collar on here. Now, flat collars aren't great for taking for a walk. They're great for holding a dog tag, and that's really about it. The issue with this is, if he decides he's going to start pulling, all the weight pulls right into his esophagus. And if you have a big dog that tries to pull, there's nothing that's restricting him from the ability to continue to pull. So this isn't a real good thing. In fact, you could probably hurt the dog if the dog is a puller by using a device like this. But a lot of people use it. One of the other things that we commonly see are people that use harnesses. Harnesses are not to stop pulling. I see them advertised all the time that they're used to stop pulling. In fact, if I'm going to take him out and I'm going to do some searching work, I'll actually use this, because what it does is it allows him to pull, and what it does is it puts the pressure down here, not into his neck. So I'm allowing him to pull if he's doing scent work, trying to search for something, and I want to keep him on a leash. So yeah, these are not good at all for that purpose. Now, this is one particular one, and I also have on this one, I had some things put on here, so I don't really want people coming up to pet him. Okay, this is similar, very similar to a prong collar. I've used these on my dogs for a long time. They're kind of somewhere in between a prong and a choke chain, I would say. I've kind of quit using these things. I used to use them all the time, but it gives you kind of the same thing. It cinches up. So they're similar. I'm not even sure what brand this one is. This one's a Triple Crown. Anyway, so this is an option as well. Another thing I see people using a lot are choke chains. And from the standpoint of walking a dog, this is going to actually be better than just a regular flat collar, not as good as a prong. And the reason I say that is, Finn, come, is when I put this on him, if he starts pulling, this thing will start choking him. It'll put so much pressure, it'll just keep cinching up on his neck. and you can choke out a dog with this thing. With the prong, you don't do that. That's not going to happen because you don't have direct contact going all the way around around the neck. It's not really even pushing on the esophagus. So this is a much safer, in my view, than using a choke chain. But a choke chain won't work. The benefit to a choke chain, another benefit to a choke chain over just using a flat collar, is if you get a dog that wants to slip out, they're not happy, you got them on leash, and they want to go after that dog, they can slip themselves right out of these. Once they start pulling on this thing, it's going to cinch up. There's no way that dog is going to get out of this. Another alternative is a slip lead. The slip lead is pretty much the same thing as a choke chain, except it's got the leash on it. And this will work the same way. I mean, you can okay, so this slip lead, this is actually a pretty nice thing. And actually, this isn't a bad thing to have in a car. So if you ever find a stray or anything, that way you can keep them and they can't slip out from you. So these are okay. Better than a flat collar, but not as good as a prong. All right, so when it comes to leashes, a leash is a leash for the most part, but this is a very unique one. I ordered this from a person that I follow, really good dog trainer, the Good Dog Training and Rehabilitation, Sean O'Shea. I love this thing, and the reason, what's important about this thing is I've had it happen once, and I know other dog trainers have had this happen, but when you put a prong on, and if you have a dog that's aggressive, a dog that's acting aggressive, and all of a sudden starts locking in on somebody or another dog, and they start pulling, sometimes those prongs will break loose. And so what we can do, this, again, we always have to have that prong up by the ears, everything else should be behind it. So what I can do with this, that offers a safety mechanism. So I will hook one of these connectors up to his prong, and then I'll hook up the secondary to his flat collar. Now, if he were to break loose from if the prong came loose, I have a backup method to hang on to him if he were to try to lunge at somebody or try to get away. So this is neat, but for the most part, a leash is a leash outside of this one. Another leash that we use quite a bit in training, it's just a long lead. This is very helpful when I think this is a 15-footer, when you are working with your dog and you need to have some distance, to work on like a come command or something like that. This is a handy tool to have along, so that way you can let the dog go out, and then you don't have to worry about, go out, recall them, and if they decide to bolt, you still have control of the dog. So a long lead is helpful as well. To summarize the tools that I would recommend anybody use, one is going to be the e-collar, prong collar, which Finn has on here, and a good leash, potentially one that can provide you a backup safety mechanism. Outside of that, there really isn't many tools that we use. This is very much what we rely on.